Hello, I'm Clara Hermit. This is Naked Truth, where I am naked telling the truth. I want to say a massive thank you for all of your comments on last week's video about me being newly single, and also if you have any topics that you want me to discuss here on Naked Truth, drop them in the comments section below and I'll do my very best to share my experiences and to shed some light on those topics. So this week I wanted to talk about something that I kind of touch on in every video, I guess, because this week I was going through some stuff just randomly and I found this little card, and this is the card that my mum wrote for me on the day that she died, and it's literally the only thing that I really have that's personal to me from my mum, and it's really important, and it was written obviously a long time ago. I was 9 years old when my mum died, and yeah, I just wanted to share it with you guys here. So this is what it says. Dear Clue Clue, my mum used to call me Clue Clue, or Clara. Wish I could be with you always to see you grow up, but things don't always work out. Please remember that I will always love you and be with you. I hope you too will find peace and happiness as you grow up, and especially find a loving partner to care and share life with. Don't be in too much of a hurry and enjoy going places and seeing things. Loving you always, Mummy. It just makes me want to cry. It's like, it's crazy how the death of a parent at such a young age can have such a massive impact on your life for such a long time. And I don't think it's ever, like, it's something that you can ever get over. I think it's like one of those things where when I was younger and people would be like, oh, it gets better with time and stuff like that, and it does get better with time and things change, but that pain and that hurt of losing somebody, and losing like part of your whole entire world, it's like your world collapses. The way I explain it is that I had like one life until my mum died, and then when she died I had this completely different life, and I was like the same person just waking up in a new world that made no sense to me whatsoever. And I guess I've just been trying to make sense of that world ever since, and I wanted to share it because I feel like grief is such a massive thing, and we don't know how to talk about it, and we don't know how to discuss it. And also like emotion, like in the face of emotion, most people just run away and are like, oh, I can't deal with it, she's crying, oh, she's mental. And it's just like, well, it's actually not mental to cry over the fact that someone died, or that you've had a traumatic experience, or that something painful has happened to you. And it's also really normal to talk about it, and so important to talk about it. And that's not something that happened in my experience as a child losing my parent. It was kind of just brushed under the carpet and like just carry on as if nothing had happened, which something massive had happened. And I guess that's why I'm so passionate about people, you know, like talking to each other, having talking therapies, and me just discussing stuff with you guys here, because I don't want anyone to ever feel like, oh, I'm the only person who thinks like this, I'm the only person who feels like this, I'm completely on my own. Because I guarantee you that whatever you're thinking and feeling, the majority of us have at some point thought and felt, and that's a huge thing, to understand that you are not alone. And even somebody who you consider to be like the most confident person, or the strongest person, or the toughest person, even that person at some point has probably, I'm pretty sure, will have experienced exactly what you're thinking and feeling. You're not alone is basically the message that I'm trying to get across. But because we're so insular and we feel like these little isolated islands, and we don't like to discuss things with each other, we feel like, and we assume that we are alone, that we're the only people that feel like that. Isn't it nuts that we spend so much time trying to create this external world where people think, oh, everything's okay with them, their life is great, it's fabulous, and literally behind the scenes it's a complete shambles, like literally a complete shambles, or there's like lots of emotional stuff going on, but we invest so much time trying to just paint this pretty picture, and don't invest time working on the, you know, what's going on behind the picture and actually making that pretty. There are so many times in my life that I feel like a complete failure. I feel like, oh my god, I'm a failure. I haven't achieved any of the things that I should have achieved. I don't have a relationship. I don't have said like this amazingly successful career, and I don't necessarily know how to create that career, or to make everything the way that I want to make it. And I feel like sometimes I feel ashamed of myself, and I feel embarrassed, and I constantly compare myself to other people. But then I'm like, do you know what, actually surviving, sometimes just surviving and just being here and, you know, living your life is an achievement, and no one ever pats you on the back for it, no one ever gives you an award for it, but it is an achievement. It's an achievement that you are where you are, doing what you're doing. And yeah, and I think we just need to congratulate each other a little bit more on the achievements that aren't these big, huge, massive, you know, moments where you get like a fanfare and all of that kind of fancy stuff. Because no one knows what's going on behind the scenes, or what battles you're fighting, or what you're trying to overcome. And today I was driving my car and out of the car park, and I do this all the time. I forgot to take the handbrake off, and I kind of feel like, as I was doing it, I was like, oh my God, that is my life. That is my life. My life is me trying to move forward, but the handbrake is on. So I'm constantly struggling against this, like this force that's pushing me the other way. So I'm trying to go forward, but something is holding me back, holding me back, holding me back. And that's genuinely how I feel. And when I look at it, at what is holding me back and why I feel like that, it's because I didn't want my life to be this way. I think there's part of me, for sure, that is still waiting for my mum to come back. That is still waiting for my life to go back to how it was, to how I feel like it was supposed to be. And there is like this big resistance in me to kind of moving forward. So even though this conscious part of me that's awake and fully aware wants to move forward, there's the subconscious part of me and those kind of deep ingrained beliefs and thoughts that doesn't want to move forward because it's refusing to. It's just like, no, this is not what I want. I don't want this. I want my mum back. I want my mum back. And that is what I'm trying to work on and trying to work through right now. And I think that grief is like this mad roller coaster like that. And if it's done properly, like by properly, I mean, there is no right way to do it, but by properly, I mean, if it's done with your full awareness and fully supported, it can take years for the process to end. It can continue, but you get to a point and you have some level of acceptance because you've been through, you haven't denied yourself any of those phases, those ups, those downs, those highs, those lows. You've ridden that roller coaster that grief is, and you've been through it all, and you've felt it all, and you've discussed it all, and you haven't hidden any of it and suppressed any of it. But when grief isn't dealt with, and when we don't grieve, that grief doesn't go anywhere. It just gets stuck within us. It gets stuck within us. We have, like, it's emotionally stuck, it's physically stuck, and that's going to cause big problems. And also, if you don't go through the process, you can get stuck in that process. And I feel like that's where I am at, or that's what's happened to me, and that it's still something that I'm continually working through. So grief is like a huge thing, and death is a huge thing, and it's going to happen to all of us. We're all going to die, we're all going to experience death in our lives, because that's part of being human. But the fact that we don't know how to talk about it, the fact that we don't know how to discuss it, the fact that we don't know how to comfort each other, the fact that we don't know how to manage grief or to cope with grief, or we don't know how to give basic advice, the fact that it makes us feel so uncomfortable is detrimental to all of us, I think. And certainly from my experience of death and grief, the fact that society has no clue how to deal with it, that society runs from it, hides from it, and cannot support it, and makes it like this big taboo thing that's hidden away and something to be so frightened of and so scared of, makes it really, really difficult for the people that are experiencing death and going through grief, and also for people who are dying, because no one wants to talk about the inevitable. And that's something I massively regret about my relationship with my sister, is that we never spoke about her death, her impending death. It was never spoken about. My parents never told me my mom was going to die. So then when it did happen, it was this huge shock, and there was nothing put in place. There was no support system. There was no consideration for what happens once she's gone, and how do we cope? How do we live? How does our life work after that? And I've had to work through like loads of emotions about my mum, like being angry at her and loving her and missing her and being furious. It's just really difficult because I miss my mum every single day, and there's part of me that feels like I am incomplete and I am missing something. My mum was an only child, and her parents are both dead. I don't know any family that ever had a connection to her, and I don't know any of her friends. So literally, I don't know anything about my own mother other than the bits that my dad tells me, looking at pictures and this note here really, and what my dad's family can tell me. And that makes me feel incomplete and like I don't know who I am. I also feel like growing up without a mum, I didn't know how to be a woman or how to do any of that stuff. I didn't know how to just, and I still don't. I feel like, oh my god, I had to try and like navigate stuff, and I always felt like unworthy of like womanhood, and women who I perceived as like beautiful or confident, I just kind of shied away from because I didn't feel like I was as worthy or as good as those women, and that's genuinely how I felt. So a lot of that stuff I buried and buried for a long time, and it takes courage to go back into that and to drag it all out and to pull it apart and to try and make sense of it. But that is exactly what I guess I'm doing and what I keep doing. And that's why when I punish myself and I'm angry with myself and I tell myself that I'm a failure for not having a relationship or a family or like a sparkly career, that's when I'm like, do you know what, it's actually okay, because you have to process what happened to you. And part of me is like, oh, it's not even a big deal, like get over it, just get over it. And I get angry with myself because I'm not able to just move on and get over it. But I also feel like this is my life and part of my life experience, and the reason I'm here is to overcome the death of my mother. And yeah, and it has so many complex nuances. There's so much to it, and it's so hard to explain to people, like especially people you've known for ages. You don't want to be like, oh, I miss my mum today, and they're like, oh god, not again. Death and grief are incredibly hard, and as much as I wish that they hadn't happened to me, they did happen to me, and I feel like this is the life that I'm meant to have, and that there is something in this for me. And I hope that by sharing what I'm learning and understanding, I can help other people. I never want people to feel how I felt. I don't, like, I still get sad, I still miss my mum, but I don't feel like I used to feel. I don't feel this just, I can't explain how it was. So lonely, so alone, so isolated, so low, so worthless. Just, it was a horrible experience. And I don't want anyone to ever feel like that. And that's why I make these videos. And sometimes they're like up here, sometimes they're gonna be down here, sometimes they're gonna be right about here. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, turn on your notifications so you don't miss a goddamn thing. I'll be back next week with another Naked Truth. If there is anything that you would like me to talk on, please drop it in the comments section below. Much love to you all from me, Chloe. Ciao.